Nestled in the arms of the once great and powerful full moon witch is a luminescent amber egg. Hidden deep within the amber is something quite special, a great rune, known only as the Great Rune of the Unborn. Many have speculated how a great rune became embedded in the amber, and why it was placed with the former Carian queen and head of the Academy of Raya Lucaria. Today, we will be doing the same. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am a human Justicar, and today we're going to be discussing the Amber Egg and the Great Rune of the Unborn. If you have not already, I highly recommend starting with my complete timeline video, as I will be referring to it multiple times throughout this one. There will be major spoilers ahead, so please continue at your own risk. The amber egg is at first a seemingly inconspicuous object, but upon closer examination, it becomes an increasingly strange and ominous thing. Very little is disclosed about the egg's origin, so much of the information revolving around it is veiled in mystery and speculation. Some of the few things we know for sure are as follows. The amber egg once was in the possession of the second Elden Lord, Radagon. It currently belongs to the former Carian queen, Lady Renala, and finally, that the great rune inside of it has the ability to birth people anew. The first time we are introduced to it is in the Grand Library at Raya Lucaria. At the opening of Renala's boss fight, during its first cutscene, we can see her descending from the ceiling, cradling the amber egg, its golden glow sparkling in her eyes. Renala is the only shardbearer that you don't technically fight. Her boss battle is unique in that you attack the juvenile scholars that surround her. They use a variety of methods to stop you, like gravitational magic to throw books, chandeliers, and other objects, as well as blowing fire, all the while crawling on the floor of the Grand Library. These aren't the ones you need to look out for though. Attacking the juvenile scholars who can be heard singing a lullaby damages the golden barrier around Renala. The lyrics to their song are both eerie and oddly beautiful.
Sleep tight, bound tight by mother's Ambre. Sleep tight, fight light in mother's Ambre.
Let's break down these lyrics line by line. Mother's Amber is an obvious reference to the amber egg, from which each juvenile scholar is reborn. Their robes tell us, the juveniles birthed anew by the amber egg of Queen Renala, the head of Raya Lucaria Academy. Yet their rebirth is not without imperfections, and thus do they repeat the process, eventually becoming utterly dependent upon it. Bound tight could be describing their dependence upon the Great Rune and its rebirth process, therefore bound tightly to Mother's Amber. Find life is more than likely referring to the new life that Renala gives to those whom she births anew. Umbra is a rather interesting choice of word because its definition is rather specific. The darkness or shadow cast during a total eclipse. It specifically describes the darkest, most inner part of that shadow. The song also mentions sleep twice, something we hear again very shortly after defeating her first phase. This is a quick reminder to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. Be sure to also hit the thumbs up button down below if you're enjoying this video. Thanks! After separating Renala from her egg, she begins desperately crawling back towards it, stating,
"Ah, my beloved, have no fear. I will hold thee. Patience. Ye will be countless born, forever and ever."
Suddenly, a black cloud-like substance begins to rise from it. We can hear the one responsible for this magic begin to speak.
Upon my name as Rani the Witch, Mother's rich slumber shall not be disturbed by thee.
an illusion or puppet of some sort appears, taking the shape of Rennala, the full moon queen. Not as she is now, but as she once was. It is then and only then that we can truly fight Rennala, or at least this version of her. Mother's rich slumber may be an important callback to the lullaby sung by the juvenile scholars. But once this copy of the Carian queen is defeated, she utters a few sentences before vanishing.
Oh, little Rani, my dear daughter, weave thy night into being.
The real Rennala remains in the Grand Library, alone, clutching the amber egg still, unscathed and seemingly unbothered. And it is there that she remains, allowing the tarnished to come to her for rebirth, through the power of the great rune stashed inside the egg she lovingly cradles. There's a lot of information to cover regarding the amber egg, so I've decided to break it up into 4 main questions, starting with, what exactly is the amber egg? The amber egg itself was a gift from Rennala's husband, the red-haired champion Radagon. As Gideon Ofnir states, her beloved Radagon left her to become Queen Marika's second husband. The great rune dwells within the amber egg that was Radagon's gift to her. As I said in the beginning of this video, the origin of the amber egg is never explicitly stated in the game. Despite this, there are a lot of subtle clues that could lead us towards an answer. Sorceress Elden tells us that glintstone is the amber of the cosmos, but golden amber contains the remnants of ancient life and houses its vitality. This isn't the only time we hear about amber retaining life inside of it. The Viridian Amber Medallion's description reads, "The Erdtree's old sap becomes amber, treasured as the most precious of jewels in the age of Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. A primordial life energy resides inside." So both those who worship the Erdtree and those who do not believe that amber contains residual life in it, whether it comes from the cosmos or the Erdtree's sap. And there lies our biggest clue, the Blessed Dew Talisman. Talisman depicting a drop of the Erdtree's sap, a blessed boon. It was once thought that the blessed sap of the Erdtree would drip from its boughs forever. The drop of blessed sap depicted looks eerily similar to the amber egg, which leads me to believe that the amber egg is in fact a product of the Erdtree itself. There is one problem that needs to be wrinkled out though. The image shows the drop of sap falling into a chalice, which could also be referring to the sacred and crystal tears. Sacred tears are blessings of the Erdtree, worshipped in the churches of all lands. During the age of the Erdtree, these tears were used to spread the faith, for theirs was once a certain blessing. Unfortunately, it tells us that this is but a faint vestige, or a trace of something that no longer exists. A crystal tear is formed slowly over the ages where the Erdtree's bounty falls to the ground. These tears are scattered throughout the lands between and can be picked up and used by the tarnished. The major difference seems to be that crystal tears are more associated with minor Erdtrees, whereas the blessed drop tells us directly that it is a drop of the Erdtree's sap. Amber in real life is a hard, transparent, yellowish-brown substance that was formed in ancient times from resin, a substance produced by trees. This could mean that the amber egg came to be from the Erdtree's sap during the Age of Plenty, which would explain why there is only one in existence that we know of. The Blessed Dew Talisman explains that the Age of Plenty swiftly came to a close, and with time, the Erdtree became more of an object of faith. Rennala speaks to the amber egg as if it were alive, and that's because it technically is. A primordial life energy resides inside. This explains why it is called an egg, as well as the way that Rennala cradles it as if it were an infant, even sitting atop a baby bassinet. If the amber egg is in fact a blessed drop of Erdtree's sap containing remnants of an ancient life form, then what is the great rune of the Unborn? The description reads, Amber egg clutched by Renala, queen of the full moon. This line insinuates that the Great Rune and the Amber egg are one in the same. However, I don't believe this to be true. It goes on calling it the Great Rune of Unborn demigods. But who are the demigods? The demigods, as Enya tells us, are each and all the direct offspring of Queen Marika. And what exactly is a Great Rune? The two fingers themselves describe what a Great Rune is, stating, Brave Tarnished, your Great Rune is a handsome shard of the Elden Ring. There is a direct connection between Great Runes and the demigods themselves, something that Enya explains in her early game dialogue. Great Runes are the stuff of demigods, the children of the goddess Queen Marika. Those that possess a Great Rune are also called Shard Bearers, a fitting name since they each bear a shard of the Elden Ring. Sir Gideon Ofnir uses this term when describing the demigods as inheritors of the Great Runes, the Shard Bearers. But why does any of this matter? It matters because the Great Rune of the Unborn is a Great Rune, or a shard broken off of the Elden Ring, and as such, it is directly tied to the demigods. That means it likely came to be inside the Amber Egg much later in the timeline, after the shattering of the Elden Ring. This also would confirm that the Great Rune was not present in the Amber Egg when Radagon first gifted it to Lady Renala, proving that the Amber Egg and the Great Rune of the Unborn are in fact two separate things. Since Great Runes are the stuff of demigods, it is much more likely that a demigod would have been the one to place it there in the first place. And as we know, Renala herself is no demigod. But the Great Rune of the Unborn is not what makes the Amber Egg contain life. It simply grants new life. The rest of the description is as follows. Perfects those who have been born anew. Children born anew by Renala are all frail and short-lived, imperfect beings, each and all. It states that it perfects those who have been born anew, but for some reason, all of those born from Lady Renala are imperfect. So then who, if anyone, was perfected by the Great Rune of the Unborn? All of Renala's sweetings resemble her, with dark hair, fair skin, and half-blue, half-golden eyes. This could just be a coincidence, but what if the results of a rebirth is dependent upon who performs it? Pastor Muriel describes Renala's use of the Great Rune as a devotion to it through forbidden rite, the grim art of reincarnation. Reincarnation is the rebirth of a soul into a new body. For this to take place, death must occur first. Rebirth is described as the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. This concept actually already exists in the game, in the most peculiar of places. The Remembrance of the Regal Ancestors description says, "Life sprouts from death, as it does from birth. Such is the way of the living." Another group who practiced a sort of reincarnation is the Carians themselves, or to be more accurate, their ancestors, the astrologers. Long before the war against the fire giants took place, astrologers lived in the mountaintops of the giants. The Carians' treasured sword, the Sword of Night and Flame, describes this. Astrologers who preceded the sorcerers established themselves in mountaintops that nearly touch the sky, and considered the fire giants their neighbors. When traversing the Stargazer's ruins, you find a peculiar object, the primal glintstone blade. It was said that the old sorcerers would slice open their hearts with these blades to imbue a primal glintstone with their soul, and thus did they die. But what is a primal glintstone? It is a glintstone that appears seemingly half alive, with blood vessels that are visible within. In essence, a primal glintstone is a sorcerer's soul. If transplanted into a compatible new body after their original body dies, the sorcerer will rise again. The reason why we know all of this is because of Sorceress Selene, an NPC who once studied at the Academy of Raya Lucaria, who also entrusts you with her primal glintstone. Just like Selene's primal glintstone, the Amber Egg is also seemingly alive. There's also this line to consider. When Renala, head of both the Academy of Raya Lucaria and the Carian royal family, lost her husband Radagon, her heart went along with him. If a sorcerer can imbue a glintstone with their very soul, then could it be possible to do the same thing with the Amber Egg, forever preserving the life within it until it is time to be reborn? This leads to our next question. Why did Radagon give Lady Renala the blessed dew of the Erd Tree? I touched on the cuckoo theory briefly in my complete timeline video, but I'd like to expand upon it in this one. The cuckoo is famous for being a brood parasite, or an animal that relies on other species to raise their offspring. The brood parasite manipulates a host, either of the same or of another species, to raise its young as if it were its own, usually using egg mimicry with eggs that resemble the host's. Egg mimicry could be connected to the Amber Egg through the rebirth requirement of a larval tear, core of a creature of mimicry known as a silver tear, as much as a substance as it is a living organism. Material required by the Amber Egg cradled by Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, to birth people anew. It is rather odd that a drop of the Erd Tree sap would be called an egg unless at some point it functioned as one. Could it be that Renala is in fact the host, nurturing the egg of a clever cuckoo? In my last video, I described the Amber Egg as Radagon's parting gift to his first wife before abandoning her to marry Queen Marika. While I may not have been entirely wrong about that, I may also not be entirely right either. Let me explain. When Sir Gideon Ofnir spoke of the egg, he simply says the great rune dwells within the Amber Egg that was Radagon's gift to her. Pastor Muriel, who reveals the most about Radagon and Renala's relationship, only refers to the Amber Egg once, stating, "In the end, Lady Renala was left alone. Cradling the Amber Egg, Lord Radagon bequeathed her." That wording matches an item directly connected to Radagon, the Golden Order Greatsword, which was once the greatsword bequeathed to him by his first wife, Renala. So perhaps the Amber Egg, or Blessed Dew of the Erd Tree, was Radagon's gift to his new wife, at the beginning of their relationship, rather than at the end, like previously thought. This could imply a connection with the birth of the 3 children Radagon and Renala conceived to the Amber Egg itself. Were they born from the Amber Egg? I've wondered this for a long time now. As far as we can tell, all 3 of them closely resemble their father, more so than Renala, unlike her sweetings who are reborn by the egg. Rani's original body, though extremely disfigured, does still have red markings on her scalp, suggesting she inherited her father's red hair. This would be the same as General Radahn. Radahn inherited the furious flaming red hair of his father Radagon. Radahn in particular is an interesting character because his actions directly caused the downfall of his family. Renala, as the Queen of Caria and the head of Raya Lucaria, was essentially the ruler of the night sky, since she commanded both the moon and the stars. We know that those at the Academy of Raya Lucaria disagreed with the Carians' belief that the moon and the stars were equal. The lazuli glintstone crown belongs to scholars who study Carian sorceries, a heterodox pursuit that views the moon as equal to the stars. Even though it was the full moon from which Renala gained her mastery in sorcery, the stars are what ultimately commanded her fate. Sorceress Selene confirms this. The stars alter the fate of the Carian royal family. Coincidentally, soon after the union between Radagon and Renala, the stars would be halted by none other than her own son. But long ago, General Radagon challenged the swirling constellations, and in a crushing victory, arrested their cycles. General Radagon saw his actions as heroic, as the Star Scourge heirloom tells us, a talisman engraved with a scene from a heroic tale. The mightiest hero of all the demigods confronted the falling stars alone, and thus did he crush them, his conquest sealing the very fate of the stars. His victory over the stars may have been seen as heroic to those loyal to the Erd Tree and the Golden Order, but it was detrimental to his own mother and everything she had built. Renala's own son was obsessed with the Golden Order and the first Elden Lord, Godfrey, despite being born into the Carian royal family. He even goes as far as to impede his own family's fate for his own benefit, like a parasite, an organism that lives in or on a host that benefits by deriving nutrients at the host's expense. The telescope is a simple object, but its description tells us of the rise and fall of the Carians and who caused it. Astrology tool used by members of the Carian royal family. During the age of the Erd Tree, Carian astrology withered on the vine. The fate once right in the night skies has been fettered by the Golden Order. Fettered means to imprison or restrain with chains, and General Radagon is famous for arresting the stars' cycles. Could this be hinting at Radagon's true purpose? An egg planted in the Carian Queen's nest by the Golden Order, with the purpose to benefit from the host at the Carian's own expense. I've always felt suspicious of Radagon and Renala's relationship, and since starting this series, that suspicion has only grown. Renala's attachment to the Amber egg can easily be categorized as unhealthy, and her compulsion to perform the rebirth ritual is detrimental to both her mind and her own well-being. In fact, she is so infatuated with the egg that rather than try and defend herself after the golden barrier has been broken, Renala instead crawls across the Grand Library's floor, all to get back to her beloved. This word is used by Sir Gideon Ofnir when referring to Radagon. If we look back at our timeline, it was directly after Radagon's abrupt departure and abandonment of Renala that the Academy turned against her and the entire Carian royal line. Those at the Academy realized that Renala was no champion after all. But as we know, before her marriage to Radagon, Renala was in fact a champion. Renala is described in the Remembrance of the Full Moon Witch as a prominent champion who charmed the Academy with her lunar magic. Yet now she remains transfixed on the Amber egg, either unwilling or unable to defend herself from harm. So was it the loss of her husband that changed her demeanor, or was it something more nefarious that turned the once fearsome enemy of the Golden Order into a docile shadow of her former self? I've been speculating for a long time now that Renala was bewitched by Radagon, either with some sort of magic or the Amber egg itself. The motivation behind this action could have been to stamp out the power and influence of the full moon, or even to control it. But why? Renala was an imposing monarch as a Carian queen, essentially a challenger to Queen Marika, and was also the commander of a great opposing army, the Glintstone Knights. It was actually in battle during the Second Lyurnian War that she met Radagon. There was also another queen that existed in the lands between well before Renala, the Gloam-Eyed Queen. The Black Flame ritual describes her. The Gloam-Eyed Queen led the apostles. It is said that she was an Empyrean chosen by the Fingers. Even though the Gloam-Eyed Queen was a chosen Empyrean, she was still seen as a rival to Queen Marika, for it was Marika's shadow who defeated her. Sacred Sword of the Dusk-Eyed Queen, who controlled the Godskin apostles before her defeat at the hands of Malekith. It's an assumption, but seeing as how Malekith was bound to Queen Marika, I don't think it would be a stretch to say Marika herself ordered the attack on the Gloam-Eyed Queen. Then perhaps Queen Marika is also responsible for the bewitchment of Queen Renala. If that is the case and Queen Marika was behind this plot, why not just kill Rennala? Why would Queen Marika go to the trouble of bewitching her and keeping her alive? It could be that Radagon truly did love her and couldn't bring himself to murdering his own wife, or it could also be that they needed her. As the keeper of the Golden Order's Amber Egg, cradling and protecting the ancient life housed inside it forever, and becoming a slave to the rebirthing process. Before I get too carried away on that topic, it's time for our final question. How did a great rune become embedded inside the Amber Egg? The way I see it, there are only two realistic options. The Great Rune of the Unborn is in fact a Great Rune as previously established, and Great Runes are directly connected to demigods. And there are only two demigods whose Great Runes are missing: Rani the Witch and Mikola the Unalloyed. I want to add in a quick little spot right here to address something that might be a little controversial. I didn't write this in the script, but I know there will be people in the comments who want to argue that Godwyn the Golden is also missing his Great Rune. The problem with that is that the shattering happened directly after his death, so it doesn't seem likely that Godwyn would have gotten a Great Rune, although he is still technically alive in death, only soulless. So I'm not really sure how that would work, and I'm not going to be addressing that in this video. Just wanted to put this disclaimer in for anybody who mentions it in the comments down below. There is a huge divide regarding which of the demigods' Great Rune is in fact the Great Rune of the Unborn. So let's look at arguments for both. Rani the Witch was an Empyrean chosen by her own set of fingers alongside her half-siblings, Malenia and Mikola. As such, they each were in a position to replace Queen Marika as the next god to rule over the lands between by the Greater Will. Rani, however, wanted nothing to do with the Greater Will or the Golden Order, but refusing was not an option. Marika's scar seal hints at this. These seals represent the lifelong duty of those chosen by the gods. Rani would have to go to extreme lengths to escape the duty she neither wanted nor asked for. Using a blade imbued with a fragment of the Rune of Death, Rani killed herself at the same time as Godwyn the Golden was slain by the Black Knife assassins. This somehow preserved her soul, allowing her to live through the body of a doll. The body she was born into was not the only thing Rani supposedly cast away. When asking him about the additional Great Runes, Gideon Ofnir mentions Rani, saying, "Rani is said to have cast aside her Great Rune. So here at the Hold, we seek the whereabouts of the remaining 3 Shard-bearers." This makes sense, since the Great Runes are pieces of the Elden Ring and therefore tied to the Greater Will, the very thing Rani is trying to escape. The term cast aside suggests that Rani abandoned it, rather than destroyed it. So it's long been speculated that her Great Rune still exists even today in the game. This is where the Amber Egg comes in. Perhaps she buried it into the Amber Egg her mother lovingly clung to. It could also explain how Rani was able to place some sort of protection spell over it in the event that her mother was separated from the egg. And seeing as how Rennala is her mother, it could fit. But let's talk about option number 2. Mikola the Unalloyed was one half of the well-known twin prodigies. He and his sister Malenia were the offspring of Queen Marika and King Consort Radagon. Well before the shattering of the Elden Ring, Mikola shared his father's faith and passion for the Golden Order. The Triple Rings of Light was a gift from the young Mikola to his father Radagon. Their relationship, however, would soon sour. The young Mikola abandoned fundamentalism, for it could do nothing to treat Malenia's accursed rot. This was the beginning of unalloyed gold. Unalloyed refers to pure gold. which could mean that Mikola learned of the impurities of the Golden Order. Mikola and Melania would both abandon their seats at the capital and embark on a journey far to the north in order to create a new order, the Order of the Halig Tree. It was also said that the Halig Tree was watered with Mikola's own blood since it was a sapling. He would then cocoon himself into the base, as Gideon Offner says. I heard speculation Mikola embedded himself in the Halig Tree. Indeed, it seems those words held weight. I have an entire video dedicated to Mikola. You can click the link up top if you're interested in that one. When we reach the Halig Tree, however, Melania sits alone, gazing up at the last remnants of her now missing twin brother. Mohg, the Lord of Blood, cut Mikola out of the Halig Tree and fled with him underground. He does not respond to either the Lord of Blood or the Tarnished after his defeat. Instead, the young Empyrean remains slumbering inside his cocoon. But what of his great rune? Well, it was never once mentioned. When Gideon Offner lists the Shardbearers, Mikola is not one of them, so it's unclear if he ever had one to begin with. There's also only 6 divine towers, and each has their own respective owner, including Ranni. It could be the same situation for him and Melania as it is for Mohg and Morgott, who share a divine tower because they are twins. The main reason why so many online are positive that the Great Rune of the Unborn is Mikola's is because of its similarities to Melania's in appearance. Which does make sense, since once again, Mohg and Morgott also share similar looking Great Runes. Mohg and Morgott are twin brothers, and their Great Runes are naturally similar. Another detail that points at the Amber Egg relating to Mikola is the presence of amber used by his followers. Sword forged by servants of Mikola of the Halig Tree, with a design modeled after those carried by Carian knights. Instead of glintstone, however, amber from the Halig Tree is embedded in the blade. We also see this in the silver mirror shield of radiant silver, festooned with amber and carried by Loretta, Knight of the Halig Tree. Loretta herself was also once a Carian royal knight. Mikola seemed to be very influenced by the Carians, even acquiring the royal's personal guard as his own. Loretta's war sickle tells us, originally given for service as a personal guard to the Carian royalty, the weapon's blue glintstone has been replaced with unalloyed gold. This may be the missing connection between Mikola and Lady Rennala, who at first glance seemed to not be connected in any way. What purpose would Mikola need to bewitch Lady Rennala? I'll give you a hint. The full moon is required to create an eclipse. So tell me, who do you think stashed the Great Rune of the Unborn into the Amber Egg? Was it Mikola, the Unalloyed, or Ranni, the Witch? There are still many questions that remain, and I'll be working on a part 3 theory video to come out very soon. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please leave any corrections, suggestions, and questions you may have in the comments down below. Thank you to the few of you who stuck it out at the very end of this video. I know it was another long one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, I can't wait to talk to you all on the next one. Bye!